and welcome once again to Infinite Earth Stories, where curiosity drifts into calm, and the universe itself becomes your quiet companion for the night. Here, questions that might feel too big or too strange in the rush of the day are given room to breathe, to slow down, to become stories. Soft, thoughtful, and unhurried. Tonight, I'd like to invite you into a question. A simple one, really. The kind of question a child might whisper while watching the sky, or the kind of wondering that comes when you notice your own shadow stretching across the ground. The question is this: what if Earth had two suns? It's such a small shift in words, from one to two, but such a vast shift in imagination. One extra star, one extra source of light and warmth, and suddenly everything changes. The sky is different. The day is different. The rhythm of life is different. Our stories, our science, even our dreams, all reshaped by a second, blazing presence in the heavens. Before we go any further, let yourself take a moment. Notice where you are. Maybe you're lying in bed, letting your body rest after a long day. Maybe you're curled in a chair, lights low, waiting for sleep to come. Wherever you are, this story belongs to you too. You and I share the same sky, the same sun, and tonight we'll imagine another. Close your eyes, if you'd like. Picture dawn. The horizon is quiet, still painted with the last colors of night. The first glow rises, but then, instead of one sun, a second follows. Two disks climbing together, one golden, one perhaps paler or redder. The air brightens faster, the shadows multiply. The world looks familiar, yet entirely new. That is where our journey begins. This isn't just fantasy. Out there in the galaxy, such worlds exist. Astronomers have found planets orbiting two stars, systems where double dawns are real, where twin sunsets spill twice the color into alien skies. We know them not from myth or poetry, but from data, from telescopes, from the patient work of science. So tonight, as we imagine, we'll also learn, gently, slowly, about what is possible, what is likely, and what remains mystery. But more than answers, this is an invitation into wonder. To think not only about stars and orbits, but about us, how we dream, how we adapt, how we find meaning in light and darkness. Because sometimes, when we stretch our minds far beyond the familiar, we see the familiar more clearly. One sun feels different after you've imagined two. Night feels different after you've imagined never having it. So let this be your pace tonight. Not rushed, not heavy, not loud. Just drifting through ideas. Like following a current, like tracing starlight. We'll walk slowly, as if through a quiet garden of possibilities. And wherever your mind wants to wander, that's part of the story too. Tonight, we begin with a question. Over the next hours, we'll explore its many answers, from the science of binary stars to the myths of two suns, from the way life might have evolved differently to the ways cultures might have sung their praises. But for now, stay with the question itself. Let it echo softly. What if Earth had two suns? But more than answers, this is an invitation into wonder. To think not only about stars and orbits, but about us, how we dream, how we adapt, how we find meaning in light and darkness. Because sometimes, when we stretch our minds far beyond the familiar, we see the familiar more clearly. One sun feels different after you've imagined two. Night feels different after you've imagined never having it. So let this be your pace tonight. Not rushed, not heavy, not loud. Just drifting through ideas. Like following a current, like tracing starlight. We'll walk slowly, as if through a quiet garden of possibilities. And wherever your mind wants to wander, that's part of the story too. Tonight, we begin with a question. Over the next hours, we'll explore its many answers, from the science of binary stars to the myths of two suns, from the way life might have evolved differently to the ways cultures might have sung their praises. But for now, stay with the question itself. Let it echo softly. What if Earth had two suns? Imagine yourself standing in an open field. The air is cool, the grass beneath your feet damp with dew. On our Earth, you'd expect one long shadow stretching behind you as the sun rises. But here, under two suns, you notice something unusual. Not one shadow, but two. They cross each other, sliding at different angles, sometimes merging, sometimes pulling apart. The world itself feels doubled. A tree no longer casts a single dark outline, but two interlacing patterns shifting as the suns climb higher. Even the mountains would wear layered silhouettes, ridges painted again and again with light. Think of how soft and strange that would be. A world in constant motion, not only from the passing of time, but from the dance of two stars above. Pause for a moment. Picture the colors. Our own sun paints the sky in familiar hues: rose, gold, and pale blue. But if the second sun were cooler, redder, then dawn would spill shades of amber and copper across the horizon. If it were hotter, whiter, then morning might blaze with a brilliance almost silvery, like melted pearl. The sky would be a canvas of contrasts, blending and shifting in ways we can barely imagine. Now think of the nights, if there are any at all. On some worlds with two suns, one star might set while the other lingers, keeping the sky bright long after we would expect darkness. True night might be rare, fleeting, a gift rather than a guarantee. In such a world, what would it mean to dream? To rest? To find comfort in shadow when shadow is so hard to come by? And yet, we adapt. Life always adapts. Just as the zircon crystals in Earth's early history carried whispers of rain where none was expected, so too might we find whispers of balance here. Perhaps the two suns take turns, dipping below the horizon, trading places like patient guardians. One rests while the other watches. In this way, the Earth would never feel abandoned to cold or silence. Always held in light, always watched over. There is something both awe-inspiring and unsettling about this. Awe, because the abundance of light would mean abundance of energy, power for oceans and winds and living things to thrive. Unsettling, because too much light, too much heat can also overwhelm, like standing too close to a fire. Beautiful, but burning. Earth, as we know it, strikes a delicate balance with one sun. Two would make that balance a constant negotiation. And yet, let your mind rest on the thought, not as a problem to solve, but as a vision to hold. A world of long, golden mornings, skies painted twice, shadows overlapping like gentle calligraphy across the land. Let it be an image you can return to later as you drift into sleep. Earth made strange, but also Earth made beautiful. Because that's what this journey is. Not just science, not just speculation, but a meditation on possibility. A reminder that the universe is vast and varied, and that the familiar world we know is only one version of countless others. Tonight, in the quiet of your own room, you get to walk among them. So here we are, standing beneath an imagined sky, warmed by not one star, but two. The question that began as a whisper, what if Earth had two suns, now feels alive, taking shape in the mind's eye. It isn't just a question of astronomy anymore. It is a question of rhythm, of balance, of what it means to live on a world so familiar and yet so altered. And that is what makes this invitation so powerful. Because when you allow yourself to drift into such a thought, you're not only exploring the cosmos, you're exploring yourself. The way your imagination responds, the feelings stirred by twin dawns or endless days, they reveal something of what you value about the life you already know. Darkness, for instance, which so many of us take for granted. Perhaps you notice how precious it becomes once it's nearly gone. Or the simple unity of a single sun, one star guiding all of Earth's patterns. Suddenly you see how delicate that simplicity really is. The mind loves patterns. It finds comfort in them. A sun that rises and sets, a cycle of day and night, a rhythm of rest and wake. But in a world of two suns, the patterns would shift, become more complex, more layered. There would still be cycles, but not as we know them. Imagine farmers watching the sky, waiting for the moment when the stronger sun sets and the weaker remains, shaping harvests not by one season, but by the mingling of two. Imagine timekeepers, priests, or poets searching for meaning in the double arcs across the heavens, weaving them into calendars, into rituals, into songs. And imagine yourself, here, now, listening, holding the thought not as something frightening, but as something gentle, something soothing. Two suns, not as chaos, but as abundance, not as confusion, but as harmony waiting to be discovered. Take a breath here. Notice your own rhythm, the way air enters and leaves, steady as the risin and setin of any star. You, too, are part of a cycle. You, too, are shaped by light and dark, by waking and resting. In that way, you are already connected to the question. Because to ask what Earth would be under two suns is also to ask, what would I be? How would we live, love, and dream under such skies? It's a vast question, and that's the beauty of it. We don't need to rush toward answers tonight. This story will unfold slowly, gently, like dawn itself. We'll wander into science, into myth, into imagination. We'll picture landscapes painted by double light, oceans stirred by twin tides, civilizations telling stories of dual suns in the sky. But before all of that, the question remains here with us, at the doorway of the journey, lingering like the first glow of morning. So let this be your anchor. What if Earth had two suns? Hold it softly, not as a problem to solve, but as a companion to keep you company as the hours drift by. Wherever your mind wanders tonight, it can return to that vision. Two suns rising, two shadows stretching, the earth transformed by possibility. And now, as we leave the invitation behind, we'll step into the world of stories, into the myths and imaginings of those who once looked at the sky and wondered. Because long before telescopes, long before science named the stars, human beings dreamed of twin suns. And in those dreams, we may find something that still speaks to us tonight. For as long as human beings have lifted their eyes to the sky, we have wondered. The stars have been companions, mysteries, and storytellers all at once. And the sun, our sun, has always been more than just a star. It has been a giver of life, a keeper of time, a symbol of power and renewal. But what if there had been two? Many cultures asked this question long before astronomers discovered binary stars. They imagined a sky where light was doubled, where two burning orbs watched over the world. These myths were not scientific predictions, but they carried truths of another kind. Truths about how we see balance, how we wrestle with duality, how we make sense of abundance and conflict. In the myths of the Navajo people, for instance, there are stories of a time when two suns once lit the sky. But the world grew unbearably hot under their combined light. Crops failed, rivers dried, and life suffered. So the people, with the help of sacred beings, shot down one of the suns, leaving only the single star we know today. In this tale, two suns represent excess, a reminder that too much of a good thing can tip into harm. Half a world away in ancient China, a similar story was told. Legends speak of 10 suns that once rose together, scorching the earth and making survival impossible. The archer Hu Yi, blessed with divine strength, took up his bow and shot down 9 of them, leaving just one to light and warm the world. Once again, we see the theme. Light is life, but too much light is destruction. Balance, not abundance, is what sustains. And yet, other cultures imagine two suns not as a curse, but as a balance of opposites. In some Pacific Island traditions, there are tales of twin suns, one representing day, one representing night. They chased each other across the sky, sometimes joining, sometimes parting, creating the rhythm of time. In this vision, duality itself becomes the engine of harmony. Think of the symbolism. Light is rarely just light. It is knowledge, awareness, energy, spirit. Fire is warmth, but also danger. Dual suns mirror our own dualities: life and death, growth and decay, love and conflict. Myths of two suns are not only about the sky, they're about the heart. As you listen, imagine these ancient tellers of stories gathered by firelight, gazing upward. They didn't need telescopes to sense the power of the question. They only needed to wonder as we wonder now. What would it mean if the sky itself was doubled? When ancient people imagined two suns, they weren't only imagining the sky. They were imagining the soul of the world. For them, the heavens were mirrors, reflecting back the mysteries of life itself. Light, after all, is more than brightness. It is awareness, revelation, a way of seeing. It is warmth on the skin, growth in the soil, comfort in the dark. To live with one sun is to live with a steady rhythm of giving and resting, illumination and shadow. But two suns, what does that mean? Twice the blessing or twice the burden? In many traditions, fire is sacred because it is a piece of the sun brought down to earth. To light a fire was to invite the sun's spirit into your home, into your rituals, into your body. So when people imagined two suns, they were imagining fire multiplied, spirit multiplied. This could be abundance, food and crops thriving, long summers, endless energy. But it could also be danger, drought, burning, imbalance. The Navajo and Chinese stories remind us of this duality. Two suns is too much, as chaos. But other traditions show us the gentler side. In some parts of Polynesia, twin suns were imagined as lovers, circling one another in endless embrace, their movements shaping the tides and the seasons. Here, the lesson was not about destruction, but about partnership. How two great forces can exist in harmony, each giving the other meaning. And doesn't that echo something in ourselves? We are creatures of duality. We live between waking and dreaming, reason and emotion, solitude and community. We often seek balance not by choosing one or the other, but by learning to live with both. Two suns in the sky become a cosmic metaphor for what we already carry within us. Pause here and imagine how it would feel to step outside at dawn, to lift your face to the warmth, and to know that one star is not alone, that another shines beside it. Would you feel more secure, as if Earth were doubly protected? Or would you feel unsettled, wondering whether so much power could be endured? Both feelings can live together, just as light and shadow do. This is the gift of myth. It doesn't offer answers so much as mirrors. In the story of two sons, we find reflected our own questions. How much is enough? What does balance mean? How do we live between abundance and restraint? And so the myths of twin sons become less about astronomy and more about humanity. They tell us that wonder is ancient, that our ancestors too lay awake at night imagining skies stranger than their own. They remind us that the human heart has always been curious, always searching for meaning in light. There's a quiet truth in all these stories. The human impulse to look upward and ask questions is as old as our species itself. Long before we built cities, long before we carved our histories into stone or wrote them in books, we had the sky. It was our first map, our first clock, our first storybook. Imagine our ancestors, tens of thousands of years ago, sitting at the edge of firelight. Around them stretched a world of shadows, but above them was the endless canopy of stars. The sun by day, the moon by night, steady companions, faithful guides. And in their dreams, perhaps, they imagined something more. What if there were two suns? What if day never ended? What if the heavens themselves were doubled? It is easy to picture. A hunter watching his shadow split in two and wondering what kind of spirits might be playing in the sky. A mother rocking her child to sleep, humming a lullaby about two suns chasing each other across the horizon. A traveler wondering if somewhere beyond the mountains, another people live under a brighter sky. We know today that binary stars are real, that countless worlds orbit twin suns in the galaxy. But our ancestors knew it in their bones, in their imagination. They understood that the sky could hold more than we see. That possibility is as much a part of the cosmos as certainty. And isn't that what makes humanity remarkable? That we can look at what is and still imagine what might be. We take the steady glow of our single sun and dream of two. We take the silence of the night and fill it with stories, with music, with gods and heroes. We take the unknown and give it shape so that we can live with it, wonder at it, and be comforted by it. In this way, myths of two suns are not just relics of the past. They're reminders that curiosity itself is sacred, that to wonder is to belong to a lineage stretching back through every storyteller who ever looked up. And tonight, as you rest, you are part of that lineage too. You are another set of eyes turned skyward, another mind asking a question too big to answer, but too beautiful to ignore. So let yourself feel the weight of that connection. Across centuries and continents, across languages and traditions, humans have always wondered. They wondered about the light, about the shadows, about what might lie beyond. And in that wonder, they were never alone. And here we arrive at the threshold of the next chapter. We've wandered through stories and symbols, through myths and metaphors. We've seen how two suns can mean destruction, or balance, or love, or harmony. But what of science? What of the real skies, where two suns rise and set, not in legend, but in truth? That is where we will go next, into the astronomy of twin stars, into the quiet discoveries of those who search the heavens today. But for now, hold on to the wonder itself. Let it rest with you, like a lantern glowing softly in the night. Because wonder is the thread that ties the ancient past to the present. And it is wonder that will carry us forward into the science of tomorrow. For most of us, the word sun feels singular. One star, one sky, one source of light and life. But the universe does not always work in singulars. Out there, far beyond our little world, stars are often born not alone, but in pairs. In fact, binary star systems may be more common than solitary ones like ours. Astronomers tell us that when clouds of gas and dust collapse under their own gravity to form stars, the collapse often creates not one clump, but two. Like siblings emerging from the same cradle, two stars are born together, bound by their shared gravity, circling each other in vast, slow dances that can last billions of years. Sometimes the two stars are close, orbiting each other so tightly that they almost touch. Sometimes they're wide apart, drifting with great distance between them, yet still connected by the invisible thread of gravity. And sometimes their alignment is so perfect from our perspective that one star passes in front of the other, dimming the light we see from Earth in rhythmic pulses. These are called eclipsing binaries, and they were some of the first clues we had that twin suns are not rare dreams, but abundant realities. Pause here and imagine it. Not just from the safe distance of a telescope, but as if you were standing on a world beneath such a sky. Two stars rising and setting, one perhaps larger, one smaller, each painting the heavens in its own hue. Days brighter than ours, nights shorter, rhythms stranger. And these are not hypotheticals. We know of planets that already orbit such twin stars, worlds that live beneath two suns. One of the most famous is called Kepler 16b, discovered in 2011 by NASA's Kepler Space Telescope. It circles two stars in a slow orbit, much like the imagined world of Tatooine from Star Wars. Except this one is real. Cold, gaseous, and far from habitable, perhaps, but real. Proof that double-sun worlds are more than myth. They are fact. Think of that for a moment. Somewhere in the galaxy, perhaps in countless somewheres, sunsets happen twice. A world that knows not one golden descent of light, but two. And if such a thing exists out there, could it not exist here too? In imagination, in speculation, in the delicate weaving of possibility. So as we step further into the science, let's carry with us the wonder of that thought. Not as a disruption of the soothing flow, but as part of it. Because science too can be gentle. Data can be poetic. A binary star system is not just an arrangement of physics, but a dance. Two partners bound forever, shaping everything that orbits them. When we say binary star system, it might sound like a single idea. Two stars orbiting each other, simple and clear. But in truth, there are many ways stars can share their lives. Each type of binary tells a different story, a different rhythm of light and motion. Some are close binaries. Here, the two stars orbit so near to each other that their outer layers may touch, their gases mingling, flowing from one to the other. Imagine two flames pressed together, flickering as one. These stars live intimately, locked in a constant exchange. Sometimes one grows larger, pulling matter from its companion. Sometimes they swirl together so tightly that they eventually merge, becoming one greater star, their histories fused. If you stood on a planet beneath such a pair, the sky would be brilliant, alive with light. Perhaps too alive, a place where day blazes with almost unbearable intensity. Then there are wide binaries. In these, the stars orbit each other at great distances. They are companions, yes, but companions who keep their space. One might rise while the other sets, creating a sky of alternating guardians. For a planet caught in such a system, there would be times of dazzling brightness when both stars shared the heavens, and other times of gentler light when only one sun was in view. Wide binaries remind us that even in companionship, there can be independence. Stars dancing apart, yet never truly alone. And then there are the eclipsing binaries. From our vantage on Earth, these are perhaps the most dramatic. One star passes directly in front of the other, dimming the combined light for a moment before moving aside again. To astronomers, these subtle dips in brightness are like heartbeats, steady rhythms that reveal the presence of two stars where once we thought there was one. To imagine standing under such a sky is to imagine a world where day itself seems to blink, where the suns eclipse each other in cycles written across centuries. Each type of binary star system is a variation on the same theme: partnership, sometimes close, sometimes distant, sometimes fleeting in appearance. Just like the stories we tell about ourselves, about lovers, friends, rivals, companions. Even in the cold mathematics of gravity, we see reflections of our own longings for connection. Pause here and picture it: a close binary blazing like a double flame, a wide binary sharing the horizon, each star giving space to the other, an eclipsing binary painting day with moments of shadow. These are not only astrophysical categories, they are reminders that the universe is varied in its ways of pairing, just as life is varied in its ways of being together. And in this variety lies the beauty of possibility. Because if there are so many ways for two stars to share the sky, then there are many ways for worlds to exist beneath them. Worlds with days of endless brilliance. Worlds with skies that flicker and dim. Worlds where balance is struck not with one star, but with two. If stars are dancers, then planets are their audience, or perhaps their children, born from the same swirling clouds of gas and dust. Around single stars like our Sun, we know the story well. The leftover matter from the star's birth gathers, clumps, and slowly shapes itself into worlds. But what happens when there are two stars instead of one? At first, you might imagine chaos. Two massive bodies pulling in different directions, their gravity twisting and tugging at everything around them. How could anything stable form in such a storm? And yet, the universe is patient. Out of turbulence, patterns emerge. Out of struggle, balance is found. Astronomers studying binary stars have found that planets can form in two main ways. Some orbit around both stars at once, circling them together, as if the pair were one. These are called circumbinary planets, and they live in a kind of wide embrace, the gravity of both suns combining to hold them steady. From the surface of such a world, you would see both stars rise and set together. A true double dawn, a true double sunset. Others orbit only one of the stars, while the second star moves farther away in the distance. These are called circumstellar planets, and their skies would be stranger still. Imagine living on such a world. You would have a primary sun, the one that warms you most. But another star would drift in the background, rising and setting like a bright, eternal companion. Sometimes near, sometimes far, sometimes glowing beside the main sun, sometimes alone in the night sky. Neither arrangement is simple, and yet both are possible. In 2011, when astronomers discovered Kepler 16b, the first confirmed circumbinary planet, it was a moment of awe. Here was proof that not only can planets form around two stars, but they can remain stable for billions of years. Kepler 16b may be cold and gaseous, not a place for life as we know it, but its very existence tells us something profound. Worlds under two suns are not rare dreams. They are real neighbors in our galaxy. Pause here and picture yourself on the surface of such a world. You look to the horizon, and instead of one sunrise, there are two. They climb together, painting the sky in layered colors. Shadows stretch and overlap. The air warms more quickly. The day feels fuller, richer. At dusk, you watch them sink, sometimes together, sometimes one after the other, painting the sky twice, giving you not one farewell but two. Would life flourish in such light? Would plants grow taller, stronger, fed by the doubled gift of photosynthesis? Would animals adapt to longer days or to the strange rhythms of alternating suns? Science gives us clues, but imagination fills in the rest. And tonight, as you listen, you are free to imagine without limit. Because that is what science really is. Not a boundary, but a bridge. It shows us what is possible and invites us to wonder about what comes next. And the truth is, binary systems are not exotic exceptions. They may be the rule. Perhaps out there in the galaxy, most sunsets happen twice. Perhaps most worlds know the warmth of two suns. So far, we've let our imagination wander, picturing what it might feel like to live under two suns. But imagination, as beautiful as it is, becomes even more wondrous when it meets reality. Because there is at least one place we know of, and likely many more, where this vision is not only possible, but true. Its name is Kepler-16b. Discovered in 2011 by NASA's Kepler Space Telescope, Kepler-16b was the first confirmed circumbinary planet, a planet that orbits not one, but two stars at once. To the scientists who studied its light curve, it was a triumph of patience and precision. To storytellers and dreamers, it was something more, proof that the sky we imagine is the sky that exists. That a double sunset is not only fantasy, but fact. Kepler-16b is not Earth-like. It is a gas giant, something like Saturn, cold and heavy, wrapped in swirling clouds. Its distance from its two stars places it outside the so-called habitable zone, the gentle band where liquid water might flow. But the details, in some ways, don't matter. What matters is that it is there, that it circles two suns faithfully, moving in a rhythm as old as its birth. That its sky holds the very sight we dream of. Two stars rising, two stars setting, painting the horizon twice over. Astronomers nicknamed it the Tatooine Planet, after the twin sun world of Star Wars. And though no desert nomads or strange creatures roam its surface, the comparison lingers, because for decades the idea of two suns belonged to fiction, to myth, to bedtime stories, whispered around campfires and movie screens. And now it belongs to science. Close your eyes and imagine it. The stars are smaller than our sun, one slightly orange, the other more red. They rise together, casting twin shadows across the clouds of the planet. They set together, drawing two streaks of light across the endless horizon. The planet itself may be cold and inhospitable, but above it burns a sky of double beauty. And Kepler-16b is not alone. Since its discovery, astronomers have found more circumbinary planets, each with its own rhythms, its own skies. Some orbit close to their stars, others far away. Some may even lie within zones where liquid water is possible, raising the question we cannot resist. Could life exist under two suns? Imagine waking up on an Earth not quite like our own. The night has been brief, a soft interval between brightnesses, and now the horizon begins to glow. But instead of the familiar arc of one sun rising, there are two. At first, it might be subtle. A pale golden rim at one edge of the horizon, and then a softer red-orange light just beside it. Two disks climb together, lifting the darkness. their rays overlapping and blending into colors we have never truly seen. The sky becomes layered, textured, shimmering with tones that no single sun could make. Imagine a dawn brushed with rose and amber, with copper and pearl, all at once. As the light grows, you notice the shadows. They are doubled, one darker, one fainter, crossing and sliding over each other like dancers. A tree no longer has one outline, but two, each moving as the suns climb higher in their slightly different paths. Even your own body leaves two silhouettes across the ground, merging and parting, a quiet reminder that you are living in a doubled world. The air warms more quickly here. Two sources of heat pour energy onto the surface. Mornings are brief. A rush of brightness, a sudden stirring of winds, clouds rising and dissolving as if hurrying to keep pace with the suns. By midday, the world is alight with a brilliance that makes every color vivid. Leaves shine greener, oceans glitter more fiercely. Stone and soil gleam as though polished by the light itself. And yet, this brightness is not harsh. It is rhythm. Just as music is not only one note, but harmony. Two suns create a layered chorus of illumination. One star may be stronger, dominating the day, while the other lingers softer, gentler, a background companion. Together they weave a tapestry of light, a constant interplay of hues and shadows. Pause here. Close your eyes, if you wish, and imagine it. Imagine sitting at the edge of a field, morning mist dissolving as twin suns rise above the horizon. Imagine the warmth on your skin, doubled yet balanced, like two hands resting instead of one. Imagine the way the world might feel not more crowded, but more complete. This is the daily rhythm of a two-sun Earth. Each dawn a duet, each morning a collaboration, a reminder that even the simplest act, the rising of the sun, can hold infinite variations, infinite wonder. As the day unfolds, the skies of a two-sun Earth would never be still. With one sun alone, we know the rhythm. Light grows, peaks, then fades. But two suns weave a more complex pattern, a sky in constant dialogue with itself. Imagine midday, both suns high above, one blazing golden, the other perhaps tinged with red or pale silver. Their combined light saturates the air, scattering into colors so vivid they almost hum. The sky may not be the familiar soft blue we know. It could deepen into turquoise, or pale into something closer to white, the atmosphere holding more brilliance than our eyes have ever learned to bear. Clouds catch this doubled glow, turning not just white, but streaked with gold and rose, their shadows darker, their edges sharper. Temperatures, too, would tell the tale. On some days, the two suns might rise together, pouring heat down in unison. Mornings would warm quickly. Afternoons could shimmer with an intensity beyond anything we know. Rivers and oceans might breathe more deeply, sending up heavier veils of vapor, thickening the clouds that gather in the afternoon. Rainfall might be more frequent, storms more energetic, the air itself alive with motion. On other days, the suns might not align. One could rise higher, while the other lingers lower, spreading warmth more gently, unevenly. In such moments, the world might breathe easier, basking not in an onslaught of heat, but in a softer layering of light. For the creatures of this earth, the changing patterns would shape everything. Plants might open their leaves earlier, closing them later, adjusting their rhythms to catch every possible ray. Animals might learn to rest in the overlap of shadows, moving most during the hours when one sun begins to fade, but the other still glows. And for us, for humans, the days would be long, sometimes too long, sometimes gentle and strange. Imagine cities built with great awnings and arches, shading streets from twin shadows. Imagine farmers planting not by a single clock, but by the shifting dance of two suns, watching carefully for the patterns that bring heat or rain. And yet, it would not be chaos. Just as Earth today finds balance in its single sun, this Earth would find its own. Over generations, cultures would adapt. Architecture, agriculture, even sleep itself would bend to the rhythm of two stars. Life would not be broken by such light. It would be reshaped, renewed, reimagined. Pause for a moment and picture the afternoon sky of this world. Two suns high, clouds burning at their edges, air alive with warmth, shadows doubled and stretching across fields. A sky not alien, but familiar made strange. A world not destroyed by abundance, but alive with possibility. On our Earth, the seasons are born not from distance, but from tilt. The lean of our planet gives us summer and winter, spring and autumn, a cycle as old as life itself. But add a second sun, and that balance begins to ripple, to bend, to change. Imagine two stars, circling each other while Earth orbits around them both. Their paths may align or drift apart, depending on their slow celestial dance. In some years, the suns might rise and set together more often, flooding the world with longer stretches of warmth. In others, they might oppose one another, one climbing high while the other hovers low, creating uneven rhythms of light. The result? Seasons that are not steady cycles, but shifting patterns. Long summers that stretch endlessly, winters that arrive in fragments, autumns and springs blending in unexpected ways. In some places, the land could bask in a near-constant summer. Crops might grow quickly, fruits ripening faster, fields yielding more than once a year. In other places, the interplay of the suns might create cooler intervals, brief pauses of gentler light where rains return and the soil rests. Seasons here would not march like clockwork. They would meander like rivers, bending and curving with the gravitational waltz of the stars above. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a forest. The trees lean toward the light, but which light? One sun rises earlier, another lingers longer. Some branches reach east, some west, creating twisted patterns of growth, as if the forest itself cannot decide which star to follow. Flowers bloom not in unison but in waves, each kind responding to a slightly different rhythm. Life here is not confused. It is creative, improvising with the songs of two suns. And for humans, our calendars would look very different. No neat division of 4 seasons, no simple cycle of solstices and equinoxes. Instead, time might be measured by the alignments of the stars. Whole festivals could bloom around the rare moment when the two suns rose and set perfectly together, painting the sky in perfect symmetry. Farmers might watch for the weeks when the greater star tilted closer, bringing heat, and when the lesser one drifted farther, easing the world into a cooler breath. Even our languages would change. Words for weather, for months, for the year itself, would bend toward the twin rhythms above. Instead of summer and winter, there might be names for the season of overlap, when both suns rise together, and the season of opposition, when their paths diverge. Instead of one longest day, there could be many, scattered like jewels across the calendar, each with its own meaning. Pause here and imagine it. A world where time is not a circle, but a weaving. Where seasons are not 4, but many. Where the gift of light is not measured in absolutes, but in harmonies. This is what Earth might be under two suns, not broken, not ruined, but reshaped into something rich and strange. Now imagine yourself not as an observer, but as a participant in this world. Morning arrives, and your home is bathed in light from two directions. Curtains cannot quite hold back the glow. Shadows slip around the edges, weaving across the walls. You rise not to a single golden beam, but to a layered brightness that fills every corner. Step outside, and the city is alive in ways both familiar and strange. Buildings cast overlapping shadows across the streets, arches of darkness where one sun's outline meets another. Architects have learned to shape structures with curves and lattices, softening the double glare, turning sunlight into patterns of shade. Markets begin earlier, farmers' stalls overflowing with fruits and grains that grow in abundance under twin rays. The rhythm of daily life bends to the sun's dance, not rigid, but adaptive, flowing with the sky above. In the countryside, farmers walk their fields beneath the doubled light. Crops ripen quickly, soils breathe more deeply, and harvests come in waves. Work is divided into intervals, not just morning and afternoon, but moments when one sun dips lower, softening the heat, and another takes its turn. Children chase their two shadows through the grass, laughing as they stretch and fold, never quite the same from one moment to the next. And at night, when true night finally comes, there is a hush, a reverence. Darkness feels rarer here, more precious. Cities dim their lanterns, families gather in courtyards, and sleep comes like a gift. Dreams are deeper, perhaps, when they follow such luminous days. This is what daily life might be. Not confusion, not chaos, but a world attuned to two suns. A life lived in harmony with double daylight, where humans, like all living things, learn to move with the sky instead of against it. And so, Part 4 closes here, with the image of humanity thriving under twin dawns and twin dusks. The science has shown us it is possible, and our imagination paints the rest. Now we turn from the human scale to the planetary, to climate, weather, and the living Earth itself, beneath two suns. The sky, under two suns, would never quite rest. Our own atmosphere already dances with sunlight, scattering it into blue by day, painting it crimson at dusk, reflecting it in silver across the moon. But with two suns above, that dance would become more complex, more layered, more alive. Imagine the brightness. Even when one sun dips low, the other may remain, keeping the sky luminous. True twilight would be rare, a fleeting visitor at the edges of night. Instead, the world would be filled with a constant wash of color, shifting not from light to dark, but from one hue to another. With this brightness would come stronger winds. The extra heat from two stars would warm the surface more quickly, stirring the air into restless motion. Breezes would rise earlier in the day, swelling into currents that sweep across continents. The gentle sigh of morning wind might become a constant chorus, carrying seeds, shaping clouds, sculpting the weather. Storms, too, would be different here. Clouds billowing higher, fed by the double energy. Lightning flashing more often, thunder rolling longer across the land. Rainfall might arrive in brief but frequent bursts, the sky eager to balance itself against the sun's intensity. Rivers would swell and shrink in new rhythms, lakes shimmering with greater evaporation, oceans exhaling into the air with heavier mists. Pause here and picture it. A beach beneath two suns, waves glittering in overlapping reflections, the wind stronger, saltier, more insistent. A storm rising offshore, clouds burning gold at their edges where light pierces through. The sky never quiet, always shifting, always alive. And yet, just as before, life would not be undone. The atmosphere would adapt, just as it has to every change in Earth's long history. From ice ages to warm ages, from oxygen surges to volcanic winters. The climate beneath two suns would be harsher, yes, but also richer. A sky not of simplicity, but of abundance. If the sky above grows restless under twin suns, so too do the oceans below. Our seas today are shaped by the balance of wind, temperature, and the pull of the moon. They breathe in cycles, tides rising and falling, currents weaving warmth across the globe. But in a world of two suns, the oceans would stir more quickly, more deeply, more forcefully. Imagine the warmth of two stars pouring down upon the sea. The surface heats faster, sending great plumes of vapor upward. Clouds form thick and frequent, casting shadows that race across the water. Rain falls sooner, replenishing what has risen. The water cycle becomes swifter, like a heartbeat quickened by excitement. Currents, too, would change. Warm water would surge more powerfully from the equator toward the poles, driven by the doubled energy. Storms would gather strength from these currents, spinning with greater intensity, feeding on the warmth, like dancers fueled by endless music. Hurricanes, typhoons, cyclones, whatever names we give them, would become more common, their spirals vaster, their voices louder. And yet, balance would still emerge. For every storm that raged, rains would fall to cool the land, to feed rivers, to nourish life. The oceans would not simply rage, they would also give. Coral reefs, if they survived the extra warmth, might bloom with even brighter colors, their symbiotic algae thriving on the abundance of light. Kelp forests might rise taller, swaying in currents more vigorous, sheltering whole ecosystems in their emerald towers. Picture yourself standing at a shoreline. Two suns shimmer across the water, their reflections crossing like threads of molten light. The tide comes in stronger, waves taller, salt spray on your skin more insistent. Out at sea, clouds swell into towering castles, thunderheads glowing orange and gold at their edges. The ocean is restless, but it is also generous, alive with a rhythm written by two stars. And perhaps, just as storms grow more powerful, so too would the calm that follows. Imagine the stillness after a double-fueled rain, the air rich with scent, the horizon softened, the sea smooth and endless under the twin glow. A reminder that even under great power, there is balance. Even under two suns, the ocean finds its breath. The story of Earth has always been a story of adaptation. Life bends, reshapes, and learns to thrive no matter how the world changes. From ice ages to fiery epochs, from deep oceans to dry deserts, life has always found a way, and under two suns, it would do so again. Begin with the plants. For them, light is not a challenge but a gift. Photosynthesis, the alchemy that turns sunlight into sugar, air into growth, would flourish under twin rays. Forests might rise taller, their canopies thicker, leaves wider and more efficient, drawing strength from the doubled energy. Flowers might bloom in brighter colors, signaling to pollinators in a spectrum made richer by the mingling of two suns' light. Some might open earlier, stay open longer, holding their blossoms to the sky in gratitude for the endless abundance. Yet light is not only blessing. Too much can scorch as well as feed. So plants would adapt, growing reflective coatings on their leaves, shimmering silver like desert succulents do today. Some might angle their foliage in clever ways, catching the gentler rays while shielding against the harsher ones. Forests would not all look the same, some glowing green and gold, others sparkling silver, others bending in strange patterns to keep balance between the suns. Animals, too, would evolve with the light. Creatures of shadow might become creatures of overlap, learning to move in the doubled silhouettes that shift constantly across the land. Predators might track prey by watching not one, but two shadows. Insects could evolve iridescent wings that scatter the excess light into dazzling displays, confusing rivals or attracting mates with brilliance that rivals the sky itself. And what of us, humans beneath two suns? Our ancestors already adapted to deserts and tundras, to mountains and swamps. In a world of brighter skies, our eyes might learn to filter the excess glare, growing more sensitive to subtle colors hidden between the two suns' overlapping spectra. Our skin might deepen in resilience, shielding us from heightened radiation while still embracing the warmth. Clothing, architecture, and culture would follow, becoming part of the ecosystem of adaptation. Picture a savanna beneath twin suns. Grasses shimmer with hints of gold, herds of animals grazing in doubled light, their coats glinting with reflective patterns. Birds swoop in arcs that catch two shadows at once, painting the air with fleeting, doubled silhouettes. A forest nearby glows with leaves both green and silver, trunks leaning slightly in two directions, following two different paths of light. This is life, reshaped but thriving. Because life does not fear change, it transforms. It becomes something new. Two suns would not erase ecosystems. They would invite them into a new chapter, a new rhythm, a new abundance. Let your mind wander now, through landscapes that Earth might carry if it lived beneath two suns. Walk into a meadow and see the grasses shimmering like waves of silk. Their blades are longer, more flexible, catching the surplus light and storing it. Some glow faintly with iridescence, scattering the brightness into rainbow edges. At dusk, as both suns drift downward, the meadow becomes a prism, a slow dance of color across every stalk. Step into a forest, and you find trees adapted in surprising ways. Some lean eastward, others westward, each tracing the path of a different sun. Their leaves shimmer with reflective coatings, flashes of silver among the green. Underfoot, the soil is rich with roots that have learned to store not only water but light itself, holding energy for nights that may be briefer or longer than we know. Now imagine the creatures. Small mammals with patterned coats that break their outlines into double shadows, camouflaged against the strange light. Birds with wings that scatter sunlight in glittering displays, dazzling rivals as they swoop through twin beams. Insects with crystalline shells, refracting the sun's glow into halos around their bodies. Even the great animals, elephants, whales, bears, might carry subtle adaptations, thicker hides, reflective sheens, rhythms of activity aligned not to one sun's rise and fall, but to the duet of two. And in the oceans, the brilliance continues. Schools of fish glimmer like liquid mirrors, scattering the doubled light in dazzling swarms. Coral reefs blaze with colors unimaginable, their algae adapted to absorb energy from both stars. The very water itself seems to glow, stirred by endless reflection, alive with radiant shimmer. This is not a harsher Earth, but a stranger one, abundant, luminous, filled with adaptations we can only begin to guess. A world not broken by excess, but renewed in its own way, balancing between the gifts and challenges of two suns.
The Earth tells its story in stone. Every cliff face, every folded mountain, every fossil bed is a page in its vast geologic book. Under one sun, we already see the scars of ice, the ripples of deserts, the frozen pauses and fiery outbursts of deep time. But if Earth had two suns, those stories would be written differently. Begin with the rocks themselves. Extra energy pouring down from above would quicken the pace of change. Rain, more frequent and intense, would wear at cliffs and canyons with greater force. Winds, driven by hotter days, would scour landscapes faster, lifting grains of sand, sculpting stone into sharper arches, deeper hollows, stranger shapes. Where today it might take millions of years for a mountain to crumble, under two suns the same process might unfold in half the time. Volcanoes, too, would tell a different tale. Heat drives movement deep within Earth, currents of molten rock rising, shifting the tectonic plates that drift across the surface. With two suns adding to the surface warmth, the balance between crust and mantle would change. Volcanoes might erupt more often, their lava flowing across landscapes already shaped by brighter skies. Imagine fields of black basalt glittering under twin dawns, cooling quickly but eroding faster as storms wash across them in endless cycles. And tectonics themselves, the slow, grinding dance of continents, might take on new rhythms. With more energy stirring oceans and winds, erosion would feed the seas with greater torrents of sediment. That weight, pressing down on the ocean floors, would sink the crust more readily, driving the cycle of plate tectonics with added urgency. Mountains would rise high, but they would fall quickly too, eaten by rains, carried to the sea, reborn as new land in restless cycles. Earth would be a planet of constant renewal, its crust never still, always rewritten. Pause here. Picture a mountain range beneath two suns. Its peaks gleam white and gold, but the slopes are scarred with deep valleys, carved by rain more insistent than ours. Rivers run swollen, tumbling into canyons wider and younger, their walls streaked with layers that tell of faster change. Beneath the brilliance of twin skies, the rocks themselves seem alive, shifting, eroding, reshaping before your eyes. This is the first truth of geology under two suns. The Earth would not rest. Its crust would tell stories more hurried, more vibrant, more relentless. A geology of motion, driven by the abundance of light and heat above. Beneath our feet, Earth is never still. The crust floats upon a restless mantle, currents of molten rock shifting like the breath of the planet itself. On the Earth we know, this motion is already powerful enough to raise mountains, tear continents apart, and feed volcanoes that glow with liquid fire. But under the doubled warmth of two suns, this dance of stone would only intensify. Consider the mountains. They rise today when plates collide, pushing land upward in slow, grinding movements that span millions of years. But erosion, too, is constant. Rain, ice, and wind carrying the peaks back down grain by grain. With more heat above, erosion would quicken. Storms would fall heavier, winds would carve sharper. Mountains might grow taller under tectonic pressure, but they would also crumble faster, their grandeur always fleeting, their faces always changing. Now imagine the volcanoes. They are Earth's pressure valves, release points where heat from deep within escapes to the surface. On a two-sun Earth, the surface is warmer, the climate more dynamic, and the balance between inside and outside more delicate. This might trigger eruptions more frequently, as the planet adjusts to the constant shifting of weight and energy. Imagine fields of lava cooling in the doubled light, black glass gleaming under gold and copper skies. Imagine entire valleys filled with smoke and ash, the air glowing with embers that reflect two sunsets at once. Weathering, too, would be transformed. On our Earth, water and air slowly eat away at stone, turning granite into sand, sandstone into dust. But under twin suns, the cycle of rain and wind would be accelerated. Rocks would not linger unchanged for eons. They would be sculpted more quickly, smoothed or shattered by the greater energy flowing through the atmosphere. A cliff face that might stand unchanged for tens of millions of years could vanish in half the time, replaced by new shapes, new layers, new stories. Pause and picture such a world. Volcanoes glowing against skies lit by two suns, mountains rising tall but worn swiftly by endless storms, canyons deepening more rapidly, the land always shifting beneath your feet. Earth's crust would not feel permanent here. It would feel alive, breathing, cycling, pulsing with energy in every direction. And yet, there is beauty in this restlessness. A planet under two suns would be a planet in constant renewal. Mountains might fall, but new ones would rise. Valleys might deepen, but rivers would carve fresh paths. Volcanoes might smother the land, but their ash would enrich the soil, feeding life in cycles of destruction and rebirth. Just as life adapts to light, the rocks themselves adapt to change, each layer a memory, each stone a witness. Earth's history is filled with extremes. There were times when ice sheets stretched from pole to pole, locking the oceans beneath frozen lids. Other times, deserts sprawled wider than seas, their dunes shifting endlessly under blazing suns. On a world with two suns, these extremes would still exist, but they would unfold in stranger, more dramatic ways. Begin with ice. Could glaciers survive under such abundant light? Perhaps not as we know them. The doubled warmth would shrink the great caps of ice, pulling them back toward the highest mountains, leaving the poles far less frozen. Yet ice has a way of lingering. Even under twin suns, storms would rage, clouds would pour their snow, and high peaks might still gleam white. Ice ages, if they came, would not arrive quietly. They would be storms of contrast, with snow falling heavily only to melt swiftly, glacier advancing and retreating in restless pulses. The land beneath would carry the scars, valleys carved deep in shorter spans, moraines left like fingerprints of fleeting winters, whole landscapes rewritten not over eons but over centuries. Now picture deserts. Already, they are places of light and silence, where stone and sand whisper beneath a single sun. Under two, deserts might expand further, their heat intensified, their winds sharpened. Dunes would rise higher, slip faster, reshaped each day by winds driven by double skies. Sand itself might grow reflective, grains polished to brilliance by constant sun, so that whole seas of dunes would glitter like gold beneath copper horizons. And yet deserts, too, would hold life. Hardy plants with silver leaves, shimmering against the brightness. Insects with crystalline shells. Nomadic people or creatures, traveling by the rhythm of shadows, finding shelter where two suns' heat leaves brief, merciful shade. Ice and sand, opposites on our Earth, would both be touched by the same abundance of light. Glaciers surging and melting in faster cycles. Deserts shimmering brighter, spreading wider, but also shaping life into new and unexpected forms. Earth's extremes would not vanish under two suns. They would multiply, intensify, remind us that geology is not stillness, but motion. Pause here and picture it. A desert horizon glowing under twin sunsets, dunes catching the last rays like molten glass. A mountain peak gleaming white, its glacier shining even as it recedes, rivers flowing stronger from its melting. Both landscapes alive, both shaped not by one star, but two. This is the story of extremes under two suns. Not stability, but contrast. Not permanence, but rhythm. A geology written more quickly, but no less beautifully, in the endless light. When we look at rocks, it is easy to forget that they are storytellers. A cliff face may seem silent, but it carries the memory of oceans long vanished. A mountain may feel eternal, but it is only a moment in the slow rhythm of tectonics. On Earth with one sun, geology is already a story of change. On Earth with two, that story would be written faster, but no less deeply. The crust would breathe in restless cycles, mountains rising and falling, volcanoes burning and renewing, rivers carving valleys that change in decades instead of millennia. Ice would come and go in sudden pulses, Deserts would glitter and expand. Storms would sculpt coastlines more swiftly than our eyes could follow. And yet, in every change, beauty would emerge. New shapes, new stones, new landscapes that tell of a world alive beneath twin skies. Pause, and imagine holding a piece of rock from such a planet. Its surface polished by storms, its edges carved by double winds, its minerals fused in the heat of twinlit volcanoes. It would not be just a stone, it would be a page of history, a memory of suns, a record of abundance written in silence. This is the gift of geology, to remind us that change is not loss, but story. That even under two suns, Earth would endure, would shift, would write new chapters in stone and sand. And as humans, we would read those chapters, build myths upon them, carve meaning into them. For we do not only live upon the earth, we listen to it. And so, the geological tale draws to a close. From mountains that rise too quickly to deserts that shine like molten seas, from volcanoes glowing under doubled light to glacier retreating and surging in restless cycles, the Earth of two suns is a world alive with motion. A restless, radiant, ever-becoming planet. Next, we turn from stone to spirit. For if rocks remember the suns in their silent way, so too would we. Under skies of double dawn, how would humans dream? What myths, rituals, and symbols would rise from the sight of two burning guardians above? That is the story waiting in the next chapter. On our Earth, life began in shadow, perhaps in deep oceans, where heat from the crust met water in hidden vents. Perhaps in tidal pools, warmed by the rising sun and cooled by the night. However it began, it grew delicate at first, fragile molecules linking, breaking, and linking again, until one arrangement carried the spark of persistence. But under two suns, how would that beginning change? Perhaps life would have begun earlier. With more energy pouring down, more warmth across the seas, the chemistry of life might have accelerated. Two suns shining on shallow waters could fuel reactions with greater intensity, stirring the soup of elements into more complex forms. Molecules might find each other faster, join more easily, replicate more quickly. Life could have awakened sooner, eager under the abundance of light. Or perhaps it would have been the opposite. Too much energy can disrupt as well as nurture. The fragile bonds of early molecules might have been broken by the constant glare, by radiation too fierce for delicacy. In that case, life might have needed longer to find its footing, longer to adapt to the flood of sunlight. It might have hidden in deeper oceans, sheltered in caves, growing slowly until it was ready to face the double day. Either way, the story would not be silence. Life is persistent. It rises in hot vents and frozen glacier, in deserts and deep seas. With two suns, the path might have been longer or shorter, gentler or harsher, but the ending would still be the same. The world would breathe. Cells would multiply. The oceans would stir with invisible creatures, and the story of evolution would begin. Pause for a moment and imagine it. A young ocean beneath two suns, rippling with light in patterns we have never seen. Molecules drifting, colliding, linking into chains of possibility. And somewhere, in one fragile arrangement, a spark of persistence. The first breath of life, born not under one sun, but under two. Plants are the translators of sunlight. They take the fire of the stars and turn it into the quiet energy of life, weaving sugars and fibers from photons and air. On our Earth, one sun is enough to clothe the land in forests, to fill the seas with plankton, to oxygenate the sky until animals like us can breathe. But under two suns, photosynthesis would not be the same. It would be more. Imagine a world where every leaf is a laboratory of abundance. With twice the light, plants might grow taller, their trunks thicker, their canopies spreading wider to absorb every ray. Some might shimmer with reflective surfaces, silver or gold, to deflect the excess heat. Others might layer their leaves in complex spirals, catching the gentler light of one sun while turning aside the harsher beams of the other. Colors, too, would change. On our Earth, most plants are green because chlorophyll absorbs red and blue light, leaving the middle of the spectrum to reflect. But under two suns, with more wavelengths and more energy, plants might evolve pigments we cannot imagine. Forests could glow in hues of copper, crimson, violet, or shimmering silver, each species tuned to its own balance of twin starlight. Picture a meadow beneath two suns. Not just green, but a tapestry of color. Flowers blazing brighter, grasses glowing faintly at dawn and dusk, vines with leaves so radiant they seem to catch fire in the doubled glow. Entire ecosystems painted not in monotone, but in symphony. The seas, too, would flourish differently. Microscopic plankton might evolve new pigments to filter and store the abundance of light, glowing with faint iridescence beneath the surface. Algae might form vast floating mats, feeding oceans with oxygen more quickly, more richly than on our Earth. Would this abundance mean faster growth, more food, more life? Perhaps. But it might also mean fiercer competition. Plants racing to outgrow one another, shading rivals with broader leaves, tangling in luminous forests where every shaft of light is contested. A world where evolution moves swiftly, driven by the endless energy of two suns. Pause here and picture yourself in such a forest. The air is heavy with the scent of leaves, the ground soft with fallen petals. Above, the canopy glows not only green but copper and violet, shimmering as the twin suns shift in the sky. You breathe deeply, and the air is rich, alive, full of oxygen spun from the doubled fire above. This is the promise of photosynthesis under two suns, a planet not barren under excess, but lush beyond measure. Forests stranger, seas richer, skies more alive. A world where light does not overwhelm life, but feeds it into forms more diverse than we can dream. If plants are the architects of light, animals are its interpreters. They move through the world guided by sun and shadow, by day and night, by seasons marked in the sky. On an Earth with two suns, animals would adapt in wondrous and surprising ways, reshaping their senses and rhythms to live beneath a doubled sky. Begin with vision. Our own eyes evolved to read the spectrum of a single sun, tuned to blues and greens, the colors of sky and forest. But with two suns, the spectrum would shift. Perhaps one sun burns hotter and bluer, the other cooler and redder. Animals would learn to see in broader ranges, their eyes shimmering with pigments that catch subtler hues. Birds might dazzle in plumage that glows under one sun but fades under the other, signaling to mates with secret colors hidden in the twin light. Insects could evolve compound eyes with layers designed to split the sun's spectra, reading patterns invisible to us. Even mammals might adapt, their eyes reflecting twin glimmers at night, glowing softly under the lingering twilight. Now imagine migration. On our Earth, creatures move with the seasons. Birds flying south for warmth, whales crossing oceans for food. Under two suns, the seasons would be stranger, less predictable, bending with the celestial dance above. Animals would learn to follow not one pattern but two, journeys guided by the overlap of suns, by their alignments and separations. Perhaps flocks would lift into the sky when the stars rose together, chasing abundance. Perhaps great herds would move when one sun dipped lower, signaling gentler rains. Migration would become a language written in double shadows, an instinct woven into the twin pulse of the heavens. And what of circadian rhythms, the daily rise and rest of living things? On our Earth, life is divided by the steady alternation of light and dark. Under two suns, darkness might be rarer, shorter, more fragile. Animals would evolve cycles less tied to night and day, more attuned to the ebb and flow of brightness itself. Some might rest during the overlap of suns, when heat and light grow too strong. Others might wake in the lingering glow when one star sets, and the world softens for a few hours before true night falls. Life would not move in rigid intervals. It would flow, improvising with the endless music of the sky. Pause here and picture it. A savanna glowing beneath two suns. Antelopes grazing in doubled shadows. Birds wheeling in arcs that glitter with iridescent wings. Small mammals slipping through grasses that shimmer copper and green, their eyes reflecting both stars at once. Life not confused, but attuned. Not overwhelmed, but enriched. This is the truth of evolution under two suns. Adaptation is not resistance, but creativity. The creatures of such a world would be strange, yes, but also wondrous. Eyes brighter, migrations longer, rhythms softer, all shaped by the steady duet of light above. At the heart of this question lies us, humanity. Would we, fragile and adaptable as we are, have found a place on a world warmed by two suns? Or would life have taken such a different path that creatures like us never appeared? Perhaps, in some timelines, humanity would never exist. The pressures of two suns might push evolution in stranger directions. Forests filled with plants of shimmering silver, oceans dominated by creatures attuned to endless light, skies ruled by birds whose wings glow like stained glass. Intelligence might rise, but in forms unfamiliar. Beings whose eyes span the spectrum of two suns, whose rhythms of waking and resting are unlike our own. Civilizations might still rise, but their bodies, their languages, their very sense of time would be alien to us. And yet, perhaps we would exist, not identical to who we are today, but reshaped by the doubled light. Our eyes might have grown deeper pigments, shielding us from glare while opening to richer colors. Our skin might bear a reflective sheen, silver or bronze, protecting us from constant radiation while glowing faintly under the suns. Our sleep cycles might be shorter, divided into many rests instead of one long night, as we learn to dream in intervals of darkness. Even our cultures would change. Architecture would evolve to soften the glare, with great lattices and domes filtering twin rays into gentle patterns. Art would glow with pigments made to reflect both suns, colors brighter and more complex than any we know. Time itself would feel different, measured not in hours alone, but in the harmonies and oppositions of the stars above. Pause here and imagine yourself in that world, standing on a hillside as two suns set together, painting the sky in streaks of copper and violet. Your shadow stretches in two directions, merging into one as the light fades. Around you, a city glows, its towers designed not only to rise but to filter, to make beauty out of abundance. You breathe deeply, and the air carries the scent of strange forests, rich with oxygen spun from doubled light. You are human, yes, but also something more, a child of twin suns, attuned to rhythms our world has never known. And in that moment, you understand, humanity is not a fixed form. It is a possibility, a pattern that emerges wherever life adapts, wherever minds awaken, wherever curiosity takes root. Under one sun, we became who we are. Under two, we might have become something else, not less human, but differently human. This is the final question of life under two suns, not only what would exist, but who would exist. And though we cannot know the answer, we can feel its truth, that life, in all its resilience, would always find a way. From the very beginning, humans have looked upward. We've seen stories in the stars, omens in comets, gods in the sun and moon. On our earth, one sun was enough to become a symbol of life, warmth, divinity. But under two suns, religion and myth would have taken an entirely different course. Imagine ancient humans standing at dawn, watching not one but two glowing discs rise above the horizon. For them, this would not be science. It would be miracle. Two fires, twin guardians, eternal companions in the sky. They would not ask why, not yet. They would ask who. Who are these beings who bless us with light? Are they brothers, sisters, lovers, rivals? Do they protect, or do they test? Whole mythologies would bloom around them. One sun might be worshipped as the giver of warmth, the other as the keeper of time. Together, they might symbolize balance, duality in harmony. Or perhaps they would be seen as eternal opposites, locked in a cosmic struggle that plays out above the world each day. Rituals would follow their patterns. Temples might be aligned not to one sunrise, but to the rare moments when both suns rise together in perfect union, casting the world in double brilliance. Festivals might mark the times when one sun eclipses the other, a divine drama played across the heavens. Priests and storytellers would weave their myths in tandem with the sky, teaching people that the suns are not only sources of light, but sacred teachers, reminders that existence itself is built on duality, on harmony and tension alike. Art would glow with this reverence. Early cave paintings might show not one radiant circle but two, traced in ochre and charcoal. Statues might carry twin halos. Music and poetry would speak of double dawns and mirrored shadows, of love and conflict written across the heavens. And as civilizations grew, entire philosophies would rise around the suns: duality and balance, unity and separation, creation and destruction, all mirrored in the eternal duet above. Pause here and imagine it. Standing in the courtyard of an ancient city, a temple rising before you, its pillars casting not one shadow but two. Priests chant as both suns climb the horizon, drums echoing with the rhythm of their ascent. The people bow, not to one god, but to two, their faith shaped by the ever-present reminder that life itself is illuminated by a doubled fire. This is how religion and myth might have taken root under twin skies, not with singularity, but with duality. Not with one story, but with many, woven like light itself into the fabric of civilization. Civilization is not only built from stone and wood, it is built in dialogue with the sky. On our Earth, the arc of a single sun has shaped everything, from the way we place our windows to the alignment of monuments like Stonehenge. But on a two-sun Earth, architecture would answer to a more complex rhythm, one that demanded creativity and reverence in equal measure. Imagine a house beneath twin suns. Its walls are not flat but layered with lattices, filtering light into gentle patterns rather than harsh glare. Roofs curve like the petals of flowers, catching one sun while deflecting the other, ensuring that rooms remain cool even when the sky blazes with doubled brilliance. Windows are covered not with glass alone, but with veils, colored fabrics or carved screens that soften and scatter the light, painting interiors with shifting mosaics that change as the suns move. In cities, streets would be shaded with great arches, walkways covered with woven canopies that break the twin rays into threads of gold and copper. Towers would gleam with reflective surfaces, designed to redirect and share the light rather than hoard it. Public squares might bloom with pools of water, shimmering mirrors that cool the air and scatter the sun's reflections into dazzling displays. Monuments, too, would carry the mark of dual light. Where on our Earth some temples align to a single sunrise, here they might align to the rare moments when both suns rise or set together. Vast stone gateways could be positioned so that, for a brief moment in the year, twin beams of light pass through them in perfect unison, filling inner chambers with fire and brilliance. Pilgrims would gather for such events, watching as architecture and sky spoke to each other in silence. Even humble villages would carry this rhythm. Homes built in circles, courtyards shaded by layered awnings, gardens planted to follow the strange choreography of light and shadow. Children might chase their two silhouettes across alleys, playing in streets where shade is as carefully crafted as shelter. Night would be rare, so builders would design for it deliberately. Alcoves, caves, and cool chambers carved to hold darkness like treasure, offering reprieve from the endless brilliance. Pause here, and imagine walking through such a city. The suns are high, and yet you move in comfort beneath archways that scatter their glow into shifting mosaics. Fountains sparkle with twin reflections. Towers gleam like polished metal, not blinding but luminous, their surfaces tuned to share light instead of resisting it. The city breathes with the suns, alive in patterns of brightness and shade, never still, never dull. This is the architecture of a two-sun Earth, not resistance, but harmony. Not walls against the light, but designs that turn abundance into beauty. A civilization literally shaped by the sky above, where every building whispers back to the stars. Time, for us, has always been written in the sky. A single sun gave us the rhythm of day and night. A moon gave us months, tides, and cycles. The stars provided the great patterns of the year. But on an Earth with two suns, time itself would be more complex, more layered, more mysterious. Imagine the first communities, watching the skies. They would notice quickly that days are not simple. Sometimes both suns rise together, flooding the world with brilliance. Other times, one lingers lower, chasing the other across the sky. Shadows stretch in unexpected ways, overlapping and sliding apart. To measure time here is not to count hours, but to read patterns, alignments, oppositions, moments of harmony and discord written above. Calendars would bloom from these observations. Instead of 4 seasons, there might be many. The season of union, when both suns rise in tandem. The season of opposition, when one dominates while the other hovers low. The season of descent, when the sun's paths drift farther apart, pulling shadows long and strange. Each cycle would bring its own rhythms of planting, harvest, rest, and ritual. Daily timekeeping, too, would be different. Our Earth has one sunrise, one sunset. But here, there may be 2, or one followed by another, like echoes across the sky. People might rise not at dawn, but at the first dawn or the second dawn. Work might be divided not into morning and afternoon, but into the intervals between suns' crossings. A farmer might tell you he planted between the shadows, a sailor that he returned after the lesser sun fell. Time itself becomes poetry, woven from the duet of light. And what of night? On our Earth, darkness comes predictably, a faithful partner today. But under 2 suns, true night would be rare, treasured. Whole cultures might build their calendars around it, marking the nights of deepest darkness as sacred intervals. Festivals of night might arise, where lamps are dimmed and people gather to honor the fragile gift of stars. In such moments, when both suns finally slip away, humanity would look upward not at blazing guardians, but at the soft sprawl of galaxies, and remember that beyond even 2 suns, there is more. Pause here, and imagine a festival in such a world. A city falls quiet, its lamps extinguished, as the second sun finally sets. For hours, darkness reigns. Children marvel at the stars, unhidden for once. Priests chant, storytellers weave myths, lovers walk beneath a sky rare and infinite. Time is not a line here, but a weaving, bright strands and dark strands braided together, guided by the twin suns above. This is how time itself would be shaped, not by simplicity, but by abundance. Not by singularity, but by harmony. On a 2-sun Earth, the very act of counting hours would be an act of reverence, a reminder that time is not fixed, but fluid, a dance between stars and shadows, written across the heavens. On our Earth, night is ordinary. It arrives each day with faithful certainty, bringing rest, mystery, and quiet. But on an Earth with 2 suns, night would be rare, fleeting, fragile, a gift more precious than gold. Imagine a culture that lives mostly in light. Days stretch long and bright, one sun following the other, shadows never fully gone. But then, on certain nights, the world finally darkens. The second sun dips below the horizon, and the sky opens wide to reveal stars uncountable. These moments would be holy. Entire traditions might grow around them. Families gathering in silence as darkness falls, savoring the softness of starlight. Festivals that celebrate the rare hours when the Milky Way spills across the heavens. Philosophers might say that night is the reminder of humility, that even 2 suns cannot banish the greater cosmos beyond. Artists might carve their works by moonlight, their hands guided not by abundance, but by scarcity. Lovers might whisper that true secrets can only be spoken when the suns are gone. Architecture, too, might bend to preserve darkness. Cities might hold shadow sanctuaries, chambers built to keep out the suns and honor the quiet of night. Travelers might journey far to witness the great night, rare alignments when both suns set and darkness lasts longer than usual. Pause here and imagine such a night. The city is still. Lanterns are dimmed. Children look upward in awe, pointing to constellations they can rarely see. Somewhere, an elder tells a story that darkness is not absence, but balance. That night, brief and beautiful, is what teaches people to cherish the light. In this way, civilizations beneath two suns would not see darkness as common, but as sacred. Night would be a teacher, a pause, a reminder that even under endless light, there is mystery. And with that, we close the cultural chapter. Religion, art, architecture, calendars, and festivals, all shaped not by one sun, but two. Humanity would not only survive beneath twin skies, it would thrive, creating meaning in abundance and reverence in scarcity. Next, we lift our gaze outward. Beyond cities and myths, beyond rocks and oceans, there is the cosmos itself. For if Earth had two suns, what would it mean in the grand story of stars? How would we see ourselves, as anomaly, as miracle, as reflection of countless other worlds where twin fires blaze? That is the journey of the next part. As we journey through the imagining of two suns, we cannot help but look back at our own. Earth, with one sun, already balances between abundance and scarcity, warmth and cold, light and shadow. It is fragile, but it is also enduring. The very cycles that sustain us, day and night, summer and winter, storm and stillness, are born from that single star's steady rhythm. Two suns invite us to wonder how different it could be, but they also remind us to see the beauty of what we already have. The quiet of night, so ordinary to us, becomes precious when we imagine its absence. Shadows, which we take for granted, would be miracles on a double-lit earth. Even the predictability of seasons, the certainty of dawn and dusk, becomes a gift when contrasted with the complex and restless rhythms of twin suns. Pause here and let that thought settle. Sometimes, imagining another world is not about escape. It is about returning to our own with new eyes. Two suns remind us how rare it is to live on a planet with just one, how fragile the balance is that allows us to grow, to rest, to dream. Two suns in the sky are not only a spectacle of light, they are a symbol. They mirror the truth that life itself is made of dualities, growth and destruction, chaos and calm, shadow and brilliance. On our Earth, we already live within this rhythm. Volcanoes destroy, but they also create fertile soil. Storms tear down, but they also bring renewal. Darkness can frighten, but it also heals, letting the body rest, the mind dream. Light feeds us, but too much of it scorches. Shadow shelters us, but too much darkness starves. Under two suns, those truths would be visible in every dawn. The world itself would remind its people that life is never singular, that for every abundance there must be restraint, for every fire, a place of shade. Two suns would shine as teachers, showing that opposites are not enemies, they are partners. And so, perhaps, imagining a world of twin stars is not about astronomy at all. Perhaps it is about remembering the dual fires within ourselves. Our capacity for kindness and cruelty, for creation and destruction, for patience and haste. Like two suns, they orbit together, shaping the landscapes of our lives. Pause here and think of your own life. The moments of brightness that lifted you, and the shadows that shaped you just as deeply. The chaos that broke things apart, and the calm that let you rebuild. Two suns are not alien to us. They are inside us, in every choice, every day, every breath. In the end, imagining two suns is less about other worlds and more about seeing our own with greater clarity. Earth, with its single star, is not lacking. It is perfectly balanced. One sun gives us light, but also darkness. One tilt gives us seasons, but also stability. One rhythm gives us enough certainty to plant, to harvest, to dream. Two suns remind us of what could have been, dazzling, chaotic, beautiful, and strange. But they also teach us to cherish what is. The night that falls every evening, giving us time to rest. The shadows that soften the day, allowing us to see depth and form. The seasons that return in cycles we can trust, anchoring our stories and calendars alike. Our Earth is fragile, yes, but also astonishing. It does not burn with excess nor leave us in endless dark. It offers just enough. It offers balance. And perhaps that is the final lesson of this imagining, to notice the ordinary miracles. The first glow of dawn. The quiet arrival of dusk. The comfort of a night sky filled with stars. The simple rhythm of a world shaped not by two suns, but by one, steady, faithful, life-giving. So as we close this reflection, let us return to gratitude for the balance of our own earth, for the cycles that cradle us, for the single sun that rises each day, and the shadows that remind us how precious its light truly is. Light is dazzling, but without shadow, it is incomplete. On our earth, we do not always notice this. Shadows are everywhere, under trees, behind buildings, in the curve of our own hands. We take them for granted, as ordinary as breath. But in a world with two suns, shadows would behave differently. They would split, overlap, stretch in unexpected ways, sometimes vanishing altogether. To imagine such a world is to realize how precious shadow is. For it is in shadow that we see depth. It is in shadow that we find relief from brightness. It is in shadow that we learn to notice shape, texture, and form. Without shadow, the world is flat, unyielding, overwhelming. With shadow, it becomes a place of rest. The same is true of life. Endless light, endless activity, endless noise, burns us out. Shadow teaches us to pause, to breathe, to recover. The darkened corner of a room, the softness of evening, the stillness of night, these are not absences, but presences. They are gifts. Two suns remind us of this truth. Imagine walking beneath their constant brilliance, day after day, year after year. You would long for shadow, seek it, build it into your homes and your rituals. And in doing so, you would discover what shadow really means. Not the opposite of light, but its partner. Not emptiness, but balance. Pause for a moment. Think of a time you stepped out of brightness into cool shade. The relief, the gentleness, the gratitude. That is the lesson of shadows, that they are not to be feared, but embraced. And by imagining two suns, we are reminded of the shadows we already have, and how they shape the beauty of our days. Life on Earth has always been a story of cycles. The rise and fall of tides. The turning of seasons. The beating of a heart. Even our breath is a cycle. In, out, pause, repeat. With one sun, these rhythms are steady, familiar. But with two, they would become more intricate, more layered, weaving together in complex harmonies. Imagine a calendar under two suns. Days marked not by a single dawn, but by a duet. Years measured not only by one orbit, but by the shifting dance of both stars in relation to the planet. Seasons blending, colliding, overlapping. The cycle of light and dark would still exist, but it would carry new variations, subtler transitions, more nuanced patterns. And yet, in all this complexity, continuity would remain. Just as the Earth's crust rises and falls, just as forests burn and regrow, just as civilizations rise and fade, cycles always find their way back. Under two suns, the rhythms might be stranger, but they would still carry the same truth, that change is never the end, only the beginning of a new pattern. We see these echoes even within ourselves. Our lives are not straight lines. They are spirals, circling back to familiar lessons in new forms. Joy and sorrow, growth and rest, chaos and calm, each returns, each leaves, each returns again. The duality of two suns mirrors this, reminding us that our stories, too, are not singular but woven of many strands. Pause here and think of your own rhythms. The moments of brightness when everything felt alive, and the quieter seasons when you turned inward, gathering strength. Both are necessary. Both are sacred. Two suns are simply a cosmic reminder of what we already live each day, that life is not about permanence, but about cycles, continuity, and the beauty of returning again and again to begin anew. All along this journey, we have imagined the earth transformed, its skies brighter, its oceans more restless, its plants richer, its animals stranger. But in the quiet of reflection, the story of two suns becomes something closer, more intimate. It becomes a mirror. For what are two suns if not the reflection of our own dualities? We, too, carry twin fires within us. The drive to create, and the temptation to destroy. The longing for stillness, and the thirst for motion. The hunger for light, and the need for shadow. Just as two suns shape a world, our own dual forces shape our lives. They push and pull, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in conflict, but always together. And it is in balancing them, not erasing one, not clinging only to the other, that we find our wholeness. Think of your days. There are times you shine with energy, as if carrying the heat of a sun within you. And there are times you dim, retreating into rest, into shadow, into silence. Both are necessary. Both belong. The lesson of two suns is not that light is endless, but that balance is everything. Pause here and breathe. Feel your own rhythms, the brightness and the stillness, the growth and the pause, the outward and the inward. They are your suns, orbiting within you, guiding your path. Just as Earth would have learned to live under two stars, so too do you learn to live with your own dualities, your own harmonies and tensions. In this way, the story of two suns is not only cosmic. It is human. It is personal. It is the reminder that we are not made for perfection, but for balance. That we, too, carry cycles of chaos and calm, fire and shadow, brilliance and silence, and that each has its place in the long unfolding of our lives.
And so slowly, we drift back. We have wandered through twin skies, through glowing forests and restless oceans, through myths and memories carved into stone. We have imagined the brilliance of two suns, their abundance, their lessons, their symbols. But now, here in this moment, you're lying not beneath two stars, but one. Feel it. The world around you is steady, shaped by a single rhythm. The sun that rises and sets with faithful certainty. Shadows stretch, darkness comes, morning follows. It is a rhythm so familiar, we rarely notice its grace. But tonight, having imagined a world of endless brightness, perhaps you can feel it more deeply. Breathe in and notice the gift of darkness around you, the quiet of night, the cool shade that softens the day, the certainty of cycles that carry us forward again and again. This is not absence. This is balance. This is belonging. And remember, you are not separate from this story. You are part of it. Every breath you take is filtered by forests that grew beneath the sun. Every bone in your body carries calcium forged in ancient seas. Every atom in your blood was born in stars long gone, scattered into space, gathered here on Earth, and shaped into you. Pause here and let that truth settle. You are not only on Earth, you are of it. You are its memory, its continuation, its quiet miracle. Look up in memory to the night sky. Beyond our sun, beyond the imagined twin suns, lies a universe filled with countless stars. Each one burns with its own story. Some small and steady, some vast and furious, some born only recently, others already dying. It is from these stars that you are made. The iron in your blood was forged in the heart of a supernova. The calcium in your bones once burned in the core of a star long vanished. The oxygen you breathe, the carbon in every cell, the gold in a wedding ring, the salt on your tongue, all of it is stardust, scattered across time and space, carried by gravity, gathered by chance, shaped into this fragile, luminous world we call home. When you breathe, you continue that story. When you close your eyes, you carry galaxies within you. You are not separate from the cosmos. You are its memory, its continuation, its living voice. This is why imagining two suns, or one, or none at all, is more than speculation. It is remembering where we come from. It is remembering that we are not just observers of the stars, but participants in their long unfolding. You are starlight, slowed into breath, into thought, into story. Pause here, and let that truth wrap around you like a blanket. You are not small, you are vast. Not fleeting, but connected. Not separate, but belonging. In this way, every sunrise is a reminder of what you are made of. Every shadow is a reminder of what endures. Every night sky is a reminder that you carry the universe within you. Quietly, patiently, beautifully. There is a quiet truth that lives beneath all the stories we tell. A truth so simple it often slips past us. We belong, not by earning it, not by striving for it, but simply by being here. On Earth, belonging is written into every breath. The air you inhale has passed through forests, oceans, and the lungs of countless creatures before you. The water you drink has fallen as rain, flowed as river, frozen as glacier, and melted again. The food you eat was grown by sunlight that traveled across space, poured down from our star, and transformed into sweetness by leaf and root. Even your body is a map of belonging. Bones shaped by gravity, blood moved by tides, skin warmed by the same light that has shone for billions of years. You are not separate from Earth. You are its continuation, its memory, its song carried forward. And so when we imagine two suns or any other world, what we are really doing is remembering. Remembering that Earth, in its singularity, is precious. Remembering that balance is fragile and beauty is fleeting, and that each moment we have beneath this one star is a miracle. Pause here and let that sense of belonging settle in your chest. Feel your breath as part of a greater rhythm. Feel your heartbeat as part of Earth's long story. Feel yourself not drifting apart, but resting deeply in connection. Belonging is not something to find, it is something to notice. And tonight, in the stillness, in the quiet reflection of stars, you are home. And so, we drift to the end of our imagining. We have walked through forests that shimmered with strange light, crossed deserts that glittered beneath twin skies, stood before temples built for suns that rose together. We have watched oceans breathe faster, animals adapt to double shadows, humans carve stories from abundance and scarcity. But more than that, we have remembered something timeless, that even in imagining other worlds, we are always returning to this one, to Earth, to home. Because our planet with one steady sun already carries everything we need: shadow and light, change and continuity, chaos and calm. It is a balance so delicate and yet so enduring that it has carried life for billions of years, all the way to you, here, now. And you are part of that story. You are not outside of Earth, looking in. You are its continuation, its memory, its dream given shape in breath and thought. You carry the dust of stars, the heat of magma, the rhythm of oceans, the patience of stone. You are, in every way, Earth thinking of itself. So tonight, as you rest, remember, the story of Earth isn't finished. It is still being written, in rivers, in forests, in skies, in you. And as long as there are eyes to look upward, hearts to wonder, minds to dream, the story will go on. Until then, sleep well, stay curious, and remember, you are not just on Earth, you are of it. Good night, from Just About Earth.